Today we're going to begin work on a simple book, and we're going to start with step one, which will be book binding. This is going to be using a needle and thread, and it is a simple saddle stitch. The first thing we want to do is size our paper. So I have this 9 by 12 paper, and I'm going to tear each piece with a ruler. So this is a way that printmakers and other artists can size or cut paper without scissors or a paper cutter. So I'm going to make this 6 inches, and I'm going to cut along the long edge so that when I fold the paper, I'll have 6 inches by 6 inches. So to do this, I line up those 2 marks on my ruler. I need to press my ruler down really tightly, start at one corner, and then just pull that paper and tear toward the ruler. And it gives me a nice, what's called a deckled edge. And I'm going to do, I'm going to size or tear 3 more of these sheets at 6 inches along that shorter edge. Now I have all of the paper sized, but it's 6 inches by 12 inches now. Now I'm going to fold each of these pages in half. I want to really make sure that I line up the edges in the corner and fold these neatly. I'm going to fold each of these papers next. Now that the papers are all folded, I'm going to open them back up and stack them with the fold in the center. I'm going to actually alternate this deckled or torn edge just for fun. All right, so now I have them all stacked, and that fold is in the center. So when we're making this book, we are going to be using a stitch that's again called a saddle stitch. I have this document in our materials folder, this PDF that I've printed off, which shows you step by step. So I have my papers all the same size. Now I've stacked them with that fold in the center. Now I'm going to use a push pin or a thumbtack to make a hole, and I'm going to make 3 holes. It's hard to see, but there are 3 little X's. So before I do that, I want to use a paper clip. I have these binder clips that are good for keeping the paper all together and to keep it from moving. So I'm going to make sure that that fold is in the center, and I'm going to put this binder clip on top, and that's going to keep them from moving. So I want to make sure that I'm just going to kind of use my eye here, and I'm going to take the thumbtack, and I'm just going to make a hole, and I'm going to wiggle it around a little bit so it makes sure that's going all the way through. I'm going to put another hole down here closer to the bottom, and let me move my clip just a touch because I want to get a little closer to the top here, about the same distance from the top edge that I was at the bottom edge. Now I have my 3 holes, 1, 2, 3 holes. When you're using a needle and thread, you may use any kind of needle and thread. I do recommend poking those holes through first so that you're not trying to force a needle through paper. I have these really thick needles that aren't that sharp. It's a little larger than that hole, so I'm going to, before I get started, just make sure that I have these holes punched through just a little bit wider. And I've got some embroidery floss. You're welcome to use any kind of thread that you have available. I'm going to choose this red, and I'm going to just pull from one end. And I want to make sure that I have about this much string. I think that's about 2.5 feet or so, because I'm going to actually be doubling it up. This is good dexterity practice, threading a needle. Now I have one that has a very large eye. And I'm going to double this up here, so I have 2 pieces of thread here. So the first thing I'm going to do is go through the center hole. And I want to pull the thread through, but I also want to leave a tail about that long. And on the back, I'm going to go through the hole on the back. So I'm going to turn this over so you can easily see. I'm going to go through the hole in the back, and I'm going to pull this tight. I don't want to pull the string through. I want to just pull it till it's snug. And now I go back through the center. So this is a basic saddle stitch. I'm going to go back through the center and again pull that tightly. On the back, I want to go through the bottom hole. And now you see that we have a binding. That string is, the thread is binding the book. And with these two, I'm going to tie them together. So I'm going to cut this and make sure it's plenty long so I have plenty to work with. And I'm going to just snug it up. If I pull too tightly, it's going to start putting some pressure on the edges of the book, but I can pull it pretty tightly. See, you can see where if I pull it too tightly, it lifts up. Don't want to pull it that tight. I'm going to put my finger right here and do my best. Again, this is good dexterity practice. And I'm going to go ahead and finish out this knot. And I'm just tying a basic square knot, which is like crossing, going through 2 times, like that first step of tying our shoes. And once I have that tied, I can trim it. I don't want to trim it too close to the knot, just like that. Now I can take off the clip. I can fold the pages again. And now I have a book that is bound. It's all sewn together. We're going to use this small sketchbook for practice in kind of like a flip book, like animation. And we're going to be using the prehistoric cave paintings as our inspiration. This is our step 1. This is what I want to see done this week. When you're finished with this, if you still have time to work, let's go ahead and start practicing sketching and drawing some of the animals that we might use in our flip book, our sketchbook animations. I'm going to stop there. I hope that you find this bookbinding pretty fun and satisfying. This is something you can use on your own as well. And I decided again to make a 6-inch by 6-inch book. Do your best, and I look forward to seeing your work.